All right, not really. I'm just showing you how these things work, just in case you want to use them. All right, I'm giving you options. All right, yeah, that's something you're going to use a lot of. Okay, so we're picking up where we left off. We are being quiet. All our phones are put away, right? Okay. So, yesterday we did. All right, guys, I'm all right. So we left off with smudge. You said that we do dodge and burn, and okay, we did that. Okay, so then we'll do the pen tool. Pen tool is again something you might not use, but I'll go ahead and show you anyway because it's quick. All right. The pen tool just creates points. You click once to create an anchor point. Click twice, and those 2 points will connect with a path. If you click and hold on the last anchor point that you made, you can see that you can actually curve the path. So keep clicking and the path will continue to grow. I'm going to go ahead and close the path by coming back to where I started. You could leave it open if you wanted to. All right, now with this path, I can convert it into a selection. I can stroke it with an outline. I can fill it with a color. If I right click on the path, you see this list here where I can add or take away anchor points to change the shape. I can go to make selection, hit OK. See, now it turns into a selection. Let me undo that. If I go to stroke path, it should. Well, it's not doing it for some reason. And I can do free transform path where I can scale it and do other things to it. The thing that I think is most useful for this tool for this particular assignment is you can use it in conjunction with the text tool. You can click directly on the path and then start typing along that path like this. Okay. Something that might come in handy. All right, so that's, I could go into more detail about paths and vectors and all that stuff, but, I don't think you really need to get into that for this assignment. Paths can get a little complicated if you're not careful. So that is the path tool. So this is a good transition to talk about the text tool because this is one you will be using a lot of. Okay. Let me undo that and undo that. All right, sorry. I'm just going to delete this layer. Okay, so the text tool, it's the big letter T right here. All right, you can just click anywhere on your image. Photoshop will automatically create a new layer for you. But what I would do is instead of just clicking and typing, I would click and drag to create a text field, a little box like this. So this way, whatever I type will fit inside text field. and I can scale it later. All right. So while this text field is active, I can go back and drag select the text. I can change the size, the point size of it. I can make it bigger like that. I can change the color. Up here, there's a little box, this little black box. Brings up my text color picker. I can change it to red or whatever, but I have to have it selected in order to do that. I can warp the type. This button here allows me to arc the text or and change the amount of the bend of the text like this. There's all these options here. I can inflate it and then use the sliders to change the parameters. So sometimes if I'm doing like a title or a logo, you might want to use some of these. You don't have to, but again, they come in handy. The thing that I want to stress about type and text is that, as you can see, there are a lot of font choices here, right? I mean, just a ton. And they're not necessarily there because they're the greatest fonts in the world. They're just kind of there to give you a variety, something to start from. All right. Typography is a whole separate discipline of design where you are really studying typeface as an art form. All right. And there are certain fonts and typefaces that work well together with images, some that don't. So I just think that, you know, you should think a little bit about the type of font you're using, given whatever your theme is. All right. So for example, if you're using, if like Nemo is your theme, you don't want to use some old Gothic kind of font for Finding Nemo, right? Just as you wouldn't want to use, you know, some kind of calligraphy font or something with lots of serifs on it, if you're doing something kind of modern, right? So just keep that in mind. I could spend weeks talking to you about typography and how it's this whole separate. I mean, there are people that just, their whole career is they design fonts. And there are people that have designed some of the most famous, heavily used fonts in history, right? And there's a certain way you can judge the character of a font, you know, to design in a design sense. So just think about what font you're using. Don't just use any font, okay? Think about what looks good. All right, so that's pretty much it for the text for now, other than the fact that, you know, again, always create a text field because you can always adjust it later. I'm going to undo this warp. Oh, I'm still in it. All right, so always create a text field. And then also, I guess my main thing is that, you know, pay attention to typeface. All you really need to worry about is the color, whether or not you want to warp it, and then the point size. There are free websites online where you can go get free fonts and install them. It's not hard to do. I can show you how to do it at some point if you want. I'll get more into type later when I talk about layer style, but for now I'm going to move on. All right, the direct select tool, which is right here, you don't really need to worry about that. That's only if you're working with paths and you want to select a path and do something with it. So that's all you need to worry about for that. The custom shape tool, which is right here, that allows you to draw a shape that also works as a path. It will fill it automatically with your foreground color, but it is a vector-based tool. So if you have, let's say, some text and you want a colored box behind it, you could potentially use this tool. You could also use the marquee tool, draw a rectangular selection, then fill it with a color. Up to you. All right. If you click and hold, you can do rounded rectangles, ellipses, lines, and the custom shape tool, which is up here, and you see you have like several designs that you can use that you can convert into paths. I'm pretty sure there's a way to make your own shapes, but I haven't actually tried that yet. So that is the custom shape tool and the shape tool. The hand tool is just used to scroll through images. Like instead of using the bars on the side, you can pan around an image with the hand tool. Finally, the zoom tool, self-explanatory. You zoom in by clicking, you hold down Alt, and you zoom out. You can also use the hotkeys Control Alt plus or minus to zoom in and out of an image as well. Okay, and that does it for the toolbar. So now we're going to start going briefly across some of the more important functions up here on the pull-down menus. And then we'll talk a little bit more about layers. Yes. If for some reason your workspace, like windows disappear on it, go up here to the upper right-hand corner where it says Essentials. Look where my cursor is up here, right? Click on that box and go down to where it says Reset Essentials and click on that, and that should bring back your original workspace. Did that work? Okay, well, tab will do it too, yeah. Okay. So file, again, we've been over. This is where you either make a new file or open up existing files or things like that, doing saves. Edit. Also, let me just say revert is here. If you change an image and you don't like it and you have not saved it, just hit revert and it will go back to its last saved state. That's handy. Sort of, but it only works if you have not saved the image. If you've saved any of the changes you made, it won't work. Redo is, yeah, the opposite of undo. So if you undo something accidentally, yeah, Control Z. If you want to go back more than one step, then it's Alt Control Z. All right. Control Z will only go back one step. Okay. So under Edit, again, you have Undo, Step Forward, Step Backward. You also have Fade. All right. Fade will allow you to, like, if you perform a certain action, but you only want to do it like part way, click Fade, and the last thing you did, like the last filter or the last scale or whatever, you can fade it back so that it's a more gradual kind of effect. All right, cut, copy, paste. These are all pretty standard. However, I want to talk to you for a minute about doing a paste special function. Okay, let's say that on your box, you want to paste an image and it takes up the entire side of your box. Like it bleeds off the edge, okay? You could just take, like, let's say I want to take this image here and, you know, have it take up the entire side of my box. I could just select this with Control A, then copy it with Control C. Then just, you know, Control V, paste it, and then try to, you know, do this inefficient way of, you know, I'll go Edit, Transform, Scale, and, you know, I'll drag this and sort of get it to where it's covering, but now it's hanging off the edges. So now I have to figure out how to, you know, erase the corners off, and it becomes this whole convoluted thing. I mean, I could take the opacity of the layer down so I can kind of see through it, and then, you know, trace off, you know, cut off the edges with the polygonal lasso like this. Then hit delete. Okay. That's a lot of steps though, and that's really not the best way to do it. A better way, let me go ahead and delete this layer. Well, you could, but not if you want it to bleed off the edges. All right, there's a function under Edit called Paste Special right here. Here's how it works. First, you go select whatever image it is you want to be putting on there. All right, and I've already done that. It's still on my clipboard. Now I'm going to take the magic wand. I'm going to go down to my background layer that my template's on, and I'm going to make a selection with the magic wand. So I've selected that side of my box. Now, instead of just doing Control V, I'm going to do Edit, Paste Special, Paste Into. Now it's going to center that. Now watch, this might look like a normal paste, but watch what happens when I scale it up. Edit, Transform, Scale. See, it's staying inside the masked area that the Paste Special created. Now I can move it around and reposition it inside the selection. So if you have an image, you know, like a background image that you want to use and then put other stuff on top of it, doing this approach is the easiest way. Now I could, again, push the opacity of the layer down and fade it out, and then put like put an activity on top of it. Again, this wasn't the best image to use as an example, but you get the idea. So like, let's say you're doing Little Nemo and you have an underwater picture that you want to have take up the whole background. All right, you can do that. Or, you know, if you have a picture of the Oval Office and you're putting, you know, the president in drag or something in front of it, then, you know, so you can have that be the, you know, the picture of the Oval Office be the background or something. I don't know. Okay. So that's Paste Special. I think everything else in under Edit we've covered. You know, fill and stroke. I guess we didn't really do stroke. I'll do that real quick. Stroke is simply adding an outline. So let's say I want to add a colored outline around the edge of my boxes. Take my magic wand. I will select all four sides. I'm going to create a new layer so it does not go on my background layer, because as we know, that's not a good thing. I'll change my color to pink. Now I'll go Edit, Stroke. There's my color. I've got a width of 15 pixels. I'm going to change it to the inside of my selection. It's at normal at 100%. Hit OK. Now, as you can see, it added an outline, a colored outline on the inside of my selections. All right, so that's what stroke is. It's adding an outline to a selection. No, it's under Edit. Edit, Fill, Stroke. I'm kind of going down. I'm doing these one at a time and kind of going down the list of ones that you should know. Okay? And we're still on the Edit menu. Yes. Yeah. You have to have a selection active in order, and then it strokes the selection. Well, it depends. You can set it to do the outside, the middle, or the inside. Before it does it, it asks you, it lets you choose. Okay? All right. You don't need to worry about these next several. Transform is another big one. Okay? Edit, transform. Let's bring another image in. Let's go to Window. Let's find our pal Red Tornado. All right. I've already selected him. Remember, he's on he's against a solid color, so I can use the magic wand. I click all the white space and select that, and then I invert the selection. Select inverse, and that selects him. It flips the selection from the background to him. Then you can Control C to copy it and paste it, or just drag it over with the Move tool. All right, now I've got him on my box. So let's look at some of what are the other transformations and what they do. Okay, transform, scale we've done. Transform scale just makes things bigger or smaller, right? Rotate, edit, transform, rotate, does what it says. See, he's just spinning around there. Okay. Skew, distort, and perspective and warp, they all more or less do the same thing, but in slightly different ways. Skew just literally is good for like if you're trying to straighten up corners and get 90-degree angles on something, but you can also use it to distort things like this. All right, you see what it's doing there? So you can make stuff look like it's in perspective or whatever. Warp kind of lets you do really crazy distortions with stuff. All right, so as you can see, that's really getting wacky with it. All right, so that's warp. Okay, so all these are under edit, transform. Then you can, use these to also rotate, flip horizontal or vertical. Okay. And that's more or less it for the edit menu. Transform, fill, and stroke are probably going to be the biggest buttons that you use there. Okay. Going to undo that. Right. It's filling whatever is in your selection. Okay, now we're going to move on to the image menu. Okay, right here, image. Now we've briefly gone over image size. That's where you find out all the information about your file. How much memory is it taking up? What are the print dimensions? What's the resolution? All of that goes under image size. Okay. Canvas size refers to just the actual size of the dimensions of the canvas. And you can change that. All right, canvas size, if you click on that, it just sort of gives you the current dimensions of your canvas, and you can add more length or width to it if you need to. Pretty self-explanatory. Duplicate just creates a copy. All right, you don't have to worry about the other ones. All right, the only other thing you have to really worry about under image is adjustments. There's several things in here that are helpful. All right, brightness, contrast, levels, curves, and exposure all more or less do the same thing. All right, they are all responsible for the light and dark balance in your image. These are used more in photography than what we're doing it with, but it still comes in handy. All right, let's take an example. Let's go to our, oh, not that one. Okay, here's our Robin image again. If I go to image adjustments levels, actually before I do that, I'm going to revert first because I've already made changes to that. All right, that's better. So if I go to levels, you will see this kind of chart pop up. That's called a histogram. A histogram is just a visual representation of all the values in your image, light, dark, and midtones. Right now, this image is fairly dark, and I want to lighten it up. You can barely see the background. So you've got three triangles here, black, gray, and white. If you want to brighten something, you take the white triangle and you slide it over, and watch what happens to the image. It gradually gets brighter, okay? Image adjustments, levels, okay? You don't want to take it too far. If you take it past where it starts spiking upwards, then you're getting into like it's just too washed out, right? This is too much. So I would just take it up to where it starts to slightly go up, right about there. And it's going to be different depending on the image you have. Sliding the black makes it darker. It intensifies the dark pixels, right? And then the gray is sort of like a mid-tone, kind of a mid-range thing. All right, then when you have it the way you like it, click OK. So this is before levels, after levels. All right, big difference. So that's handy if you have some photos that are dark or too light, and you want to try to make some minor adjustments to it to make it better. Okay. Also under adjustments is hue saturation. All right. Hue just changes the colors in the image. All right. If I slide that back and forth, you see how it's changing things from blues to purples to reds to greens. Okay. I don't know why you would necessarily need to use this, but that's what it does. Saturation refers to the intensity of the colors. All right, so see if I slide it all the way down, the image is black and white, all the color's gone. But the more I start sliding it up in the positives, the color is super, super saturated. All right, it even looks that way more so on my computer than it does on the screen. All right, so saturation handles the vibrancy of the color, hue handles the color itself, and then lightness once again has to do with light and dark. Okay. Color balance refers to, like, sometimes you have an image and it just has, because of the lighting conditions or something, like it just has like a blue tinge to the colors or a red tinge or something, and you want to get rid of it, then this is where you use color balance. And, you know, like let's say it has a really blue tinge, then you'd want to take the cyan and red and do it a little more towards the red, and then on the yellow blue, take it more towards the yellow. And that will kind of warm it up a little bit. All right. It'll do the opposite too if you want to cool things down. So whichever color is too dominant, then you go to that slider and you turn it the opposite direction. Okay. And honestly, I think that's all you really need for image. All right, image adjustments, and then image size and canvas size if you feel the need. And under adjustments, it's just levels, hue, saturation, and color balance. Oh, and mode, I guess. You know, it's just important to know that you should always be an RGB color for this assignment. You don't have to worry about any of the other things. And sometimes you might bring an image in if it's a GIF or something from the internet, and it might be an indexed color image. If it is, just switch it to RGB. Sometimes if an image gives you trouble, it's because you have to change the mode of it. Okay, so that's it for image. Now layer, this is really important. Layers are probably the most important concept in understanding Photoshop, because when used properly, you want to have all of your elements on separate layers in Photoshop, because that way you can edit them independently from one another. And if you make a mistake, you're not ruining the entire image, you're just ruining one layer. Now, for most things like creating type or pasting something, Photoshop will automatically create a new layer for you. But sometimes you just got to be careful, like when you're going back and forth between layers and you're selecting stuff, you just got to be careful that you're switching to a new layer before you do anything. Because, and I forget too. I make the same mistake. It's just a habit. Okay, so layers. You've got information here in the layer menu up top. All the same information is repeated down here on the layer window. You click on this, you've got the same functions. You know, you've got make a new layer, duplicate layer, delete layer, merge down, merge visible. Okay. The thing about layers is you can combine them together. Like later on, if you find that you have too many layers in your image and you want to start paring them down, you select a layer like this, and then if you do merge layers, or merge down rather, it will merge the selected layer with the one directly beneath it. And you can just keep doing that ad infinitum. All right, so that comes in handy. But really, it's just the concept of layers. Now, for example, let's do a little experiment here. I mean, this is mostly common sense, but it's a different way of thinking that if you're not used to it, it can be tricky. All right, now I've got my red tornado guy here. as you can see. Now, I'm going to take him and move him around. Like this. You see, he's in the front of everything. Okay? What happens when I do this? Whoops, I had 2 layers there. Didn't even realize that. Oh, there it is. That's why it's not working. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not dragging this down far enough. Okay, so now I'm moving my red tornado guy and he's disappearing. Why is that? Right, I changed the order of the layers in the stack. Remember, all of these layers on this list, it's like stacks of paper in a pile, but they're like on clear sheets of plastic. So you can see through to the ones beneath it, but if there's something on that layer, if it's underneath the layer in the list, it's going to be obscured. So you click on the layer and you can see the cursor change from a little pointy hand to a grabby hand, and you just move that layer up and now he's in front again. Okay, so you kind of have to think about background, middle ground, foreground kind of concepts when you're dealing with layers. Okay, and when you start actually working on your boxes, you should definitely work in that order. Like start with your background, get all your colors and background images and fills in first, and then add elements on top of those. All right, so all your fills and images that go on the sides of your box should be at the bottom of your layer stack, and then all the text and other pictures should be above those. Okay? All right, this is probably a good place to stop because the bell's going to ring in a few minutes. So let me take this opportunity to tell you that tomorrow the AP art students are going to be all over the place because they are all scrambling to finish their portfolios and get them submitted. Yeah, okay. Yeah, great. Okay, so we're scared. Make sure that number one, this room's going to be crazy. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to have class next door because there's no class in there this period. So we're going to let them have the run of this room tomorrow. So tomorrow when you come in, just remember we are actually going to meet over there for class. Okay? So write yourself a note. Don't forget. I mean, it's just next door, but all right, we're going to be in the photography room over there tomorrow. And that way they can do their thing in here. All right. Also, the fruit's going away today, so if anyone needs any photos of the fruit, we can turn the lights on and you can take pictures, but don't take it yet because it's dark. No, not those, the other ones. But whatever. Okay? And those paintings, again, are due next week. Honor sketchbook due tomorrow. They're on the website. Go to the class website and go to the bulletins. Yeah. Just go to Art 1, period 5. Yeah, they're right there. Yeah. No, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. All right, so let me pause this.